Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to reInvent 2021. This is the recap of what I've been calling the machine learning keynote. More on that and why I mentioned it like that in just a moment. Let's talk to everybody we have on the panel who's here to talk about this keynote and break it apart and talk about all the things they're interested in. I don't know. Let's just go in order, shall we? So you can all sort of like follow one from another. Who wants to go first? Luca?
Okay, it's me. Happy to be here. I'm Luca Bianchi. I'm from Italy. I'm CTO at Neospidens and AWS Hero, working on serverless and machine learning. And actually, I'm in Seattle, even if I'm not at the Caesar with Maisie, but I'm here to follow with you all what's happening.
Okay, you're in Seattle or you're in Vegas?
Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I'm a bit jet lagged. I am in Vegas. I am big jet lagged.
It's a long day, long day.
Yeah.
All right. Who's next?
Maybe me, yes.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm Janos. I work together with Luca at Neospidens. I'm machine learning team leader and AWS community builder. I remain in Italy because we are based in Italy, and I'm very happy to be here with you.
Thank you.
So you are in Seattle?
No.
No, you're not in Seattle either.
I'm seated.
All right. Shall we go down? Maisie, just hello. How are you?
Good. That helps. I think I see the orientation, but I wasn't sure that you guys see the same orientation. Yes,
this is
Maisie.
not Zoom.
Yeah, probably better. I'm a data scientist at Power Digital. It's a digital media agency based in San Diego. It's my first year at reInvent. I'm super excited. Just got certified to be here, or certified to come. And then, yeah.
And to be clear, this is the machine learning specialty certification. It's not just like COVID clear certification, but yeah.
Right. Yes, yeah. I got the machine learning.
No, that's fantastic. And so obviously, yes, you're in Caesar's something or other at the moment.
Yeah, the Caesar Forum, if anyone else is here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And Virginie.
Bonsoir. So I'm in France right now. It is nearly midnight. I'm an AWS Hero also, and I'm the manager of the data department in Teamwork in France. And so I work in AI and machine learning.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. There could potentially be others joining us as well. I know, especially with people who are in Vegas at the moment, it's all a bit frantic, trying to find the right space and trying to find a space. And Maisie, thank you so much for basically just saying, I'm just going to be here in this corner. Let's just get this done. So very much appreciate that. Okay, so we've all, we've either all watched the keynote. Was anybody there live at the keynote?
Missed it.
You missed it. Oh no. I mean, I honestly, being present at the keynote itself often isn't necessarily the best way to consume it. But Luca, you were there?
Yeah, I was there. It was interesting. I expected more thrilling announcement and more frequent negative frequent of announcement, but they kept all the announcement until the very end of the keynote.
Sure. Yeah, let's talk about that in a second as well. Virginie, you weren't able to watch the keynote, is that right? But you have read the blog post, I think.
Yes. Yes, I was reading the blog post every time there was a new one to know what was going on during the keynote. But during the keynote, I was sitting with my daughter. So no, I didn't watch the keynote live.
And that is important, and that's what matters. And you probably are in a situation where you probably know more about some of these things than we do, or I do. I did watch the keynote. I did watch the keynote, but it was super early in the morning, and I'm slightly regretting my life choices, but never mind. I don't know how best to necessarily go through this. Maybe we go through announcement at a time. It was interesting, like you said, Luca, that it was a bit light on with machine learning. And this is what I was talking about when I sort of mentioned this right at the back at the beginning. It's what I've been calling the machine learning keynote. But I actually noticed, I have this actually on a screen somewhere here. I kind of went back to sort of check what AWS call it. It's not the machine learning keynote at all. It's Swami's keynote. And Swami does a bunch of things, right? Or it certainly says in here that he's going to talk about databases, analytics, and machine learning, which is, of course, absolutely what he did. So I've no one to blame other than myself, but and everybody else has been basically sort of putting this forward as being the keynote for machine learning. It did have some of that, but it had plenty of other things as well. So I guess that was a little bit of an interesting diversion for me. But has anybody got, maybe we'll go around and say, anybody got sort of key announcements that were made that you are particularly interested in? And we'll sort of pick those off first, because I guess that's the important stuff to jump on. Maisie, you're nodding away. Have you got one?
Yeah, I did miss it in person, but I did catch the end of the blog post. I listened to the first, I think, 20 minutes. And so I think the two things I'm super excited about was hearing about the data migration fleet advisor, just knowing that we're migrating, and just, you know, we have a lot of data warehouses. And so we're trying to, like, we've been through some of those pain points. So I just thought it was super exciting to hear about the fleet advisor and how we can move that, put data in S3 and then have what is it? I forget the terms, but just having it like scanned and kind of creating a metadata for it. And then I think the other one that I was really excited about was the Canvas and being able to, I work with a lot of data analysts who don't yet have, you know, the ML training that I have, but super data centric, right? Like they want to be building models and have the access to do so. So I'm excited that they would be able to like use the same toolings as me, and that we'd be able to like have more integrated workflows.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk about Canvas at some point here as well. I guess it's probably important to say it wasn't part of this keynote, but it was. It's probably the most one of the exciting things that's happened this week. So it was from yesterday's keynote, which I guess meant that it's got that higher prominence. I've certainly been playing around with it as well, and we can talk about that in a moment too. You mentioned there the database migration service. So this is DMS. Is the database migration service that we know and love, maybe, but it's now basically had this refresh, and it's got Service Fleet Advisor. Do you have a sense of some of the problems that DMS originally had that sort of this now solves?
I don't. I actually haven't used it myself, but I feel like it's a common problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else got experience with DMS? I have very light on experience with it, and I have had issues with getting some of the software to work, certainly on things like Mac OS and stuff. But it was one of those announcements that, again, it's not particularly a machine learning announcement, but it was right up front there in the keynote. Anyone's got any thoughts on that, or should we go pick another one? Give people opportunity to say. Stunned silence. It's I think part of this is the announcements come out, and obviously we've had a relatively short period of time to actually sort of dig into it. It's cool to highlight these things, and all of these things are going to need further insight. I guess some of us have got some preview access on some of the things, but not this one. Maybe I'll go to Virginie. Have you got one of the blog post articles that you've seen there that sort of like sticks out above the others? Because you don't get, you don't get the hype, right? You don't get the applause and all the rest of it.
No.
So you're completely neutral in this, and so I'm really.
I don't know if I'm really neutral, because I've got my ideas about what I would like to see in AWS, and one thing that I've seen that was very interesting is SageMaker endpoint, serverless SageMaker endpoints, and this serverless version of endpoints will be something very good, I think. And I'm hoping to try them very soon. So yeah, I think this is my favorite
absolutely
point.
I got to say, I'm completely with you, and I think that we might have some other fans of this one here in the room as well. What was interesting to me, I mean, you might have seen this as a blog post, which was, I think there were 3 separate blog posts for each of these things. But in the presentation, these were all put together on the same slide. It's like, oh, by the way, we have SageMaker training compiler, we have inference recommender, and we've got serverless inference. Now let's talk about something else. It's like, no, wait a minute. You've got serverless inference. What now? I mean,
talking so much time about some different things, and then it's just, I'm waiting actually for 5 years I think, for the serverless inference now.
Yep.
And a couple of months ago, when it came out, the asynchronous endpoints, it was something like a step. It seemed like a step towards the structure of this. But then I figured out that it has a cold start of about, I don't know, 10 minutes or something like this. So it's absolutely not a really serverless stuff. I'm very interested to see how this will work out.
Yeah, I was excited when I heard about serverless inference. Then I jumped to the documentation, and I have a mixed feelings right now.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. No, go and spoil it.
No, it's public. It's public. It's public docs.
Yeah. No, I don't mean spoilers. I mean, I'm on a high at the moment with serverless inference.
Oh.
But tell me it's not as good as I thought.
You always have to follow this usual curve of enthusiasm. And then...
Yeah, it's great. It is taught for periodic or intermittent workloads, so that's super great. Two things that shines out. The first one is that you can bring your own container, just pretty much like with real-time inference or whatever. And the second one that makes me less happy is that it talks only about virtual CPUs, but not GPUs at the moment. So I have a mixed feeling.
Give me 1 second, Luca, and everybody else. I'm just going to add Jillian into the stream. Hopefully she's ready. And oh, Jillian's got a production crew there. But she's not, she can't hear us yet.
Hey.
I didn't realize that. Oh, hey, how you going? Do you have a production crew member there? That was amazing. Like, so you had someone with a mic. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Can you hear? Fine. Okay. Can you hear us, Jillian?
I'm gonna try and switch you here so I can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear us now? Sorry.
Yeah,
everybody.
that's better.
Okay.
All
right. We'll let Jillian sort her things out. I'm just going to mute Jillian just for a second. We'll be back with you. Jillian. Sorry, Luca. Sorry. So you're saying that. Tell us a bit more about this the serverless inference. So it's obviously it's a container you have to bring, but can you just use a normal? You can use any container, right? You can use a normal SageMaker container.
Yeah, you can use normal SageMaker container with support for PyTorch, TensorFlow, MXNet, Chainer. You can also use your own container if you have any kind of customization, and that's super good. It says the doc says that you have a couple of constraints, so you cannot pull containers from marketplace, for example, during the preview, but probably it will be lifted because they say it is just during the preview phase. You have a number, maximum concurrency number for a single endpoint, which is about 50. So you cannot have more than 50 endpoints running concurrently, even always in the preview. So we don't know what will happen when it becomes GA. And on the downside, it states clearly that you could have cold starts, and you can also monitor a metric which is called model setup time that allows you to monitor the status of the endpoints. So I suppose it won't be super fast at the moment spinning up an inference endpoint, even with the serverless SageMaker. And the other thing is that I can't find GPU support. And I'm a bit sad about that because I hope.
Early days, preview, right? Sorry, and version, you were actually the person who actually raised this point, so I definitely want to come back to you as well and get your thoughts on this. And just moments before we do that, we'll just say hello to Jillian, who I think is now free of any kind of technical issues potentially. Jillian, can you hear us? Yes.
Hi. Yes, I can hear you now.
Thanks so much for joining us.
From the fancy streaming booth in the serverless and container space. So
yeah, Well, yeah, so it looks as though potentially the fancy streaming booth was slightly more complex than just putting a laptop down and going.
I think so.
Maisie's just the other side of the same room, I think. And yeah, just going with the simple
She was winning.
We're just going through serverless inference. And I just wanted to hand back to Virginie, because you actually raised this in the first place.
Yeah.
What particularly caught your eye about it?
In fact, we have some customers who need only few inferences by hour or things like that. They don't need to have a server running all the time. And so the concurrency limit is not really a problem for them, because they just have 0 or 1 inference at a time. And the serverless endpoint will be very useful for them to pay only what they really use, because right now we have some servers running 24 hours a day, but they use them maybe 1 hour a day, and we don't know when. So we cannot just switch on and switch off the servers every time. And so I think it will be very easy for them to use it. So we have a lot of use cases like that with very few inferences, and the serverless endpoint is very interesting for this use case. And maybe there is no GPU for the moment, but we will see that maybe later. It is just a preview, so maybe it will be supported after that. So I have a lot of ops with this one, and I'm very happy to have seen that, because I was waiting for that for a long time. Another thing that I was waiting for, but I haven't listened something about that, is to have GPU for Lambda. So maybe we will have to wait more for that to do serverless inferences. In fact, the goal for GPU in Lambda was to do serverless inferences, and we have serverless inferences in SageMaker. So if we have GPU in SageMaker, we don't need GPU for Lambda. So we will see.
Absolutely. Were you using Lambda functions to make sort of serverless inference in the past? Is that how you were doing that?
No, not really, because we have some limitations with Lambda functions, and so we cannot really do exactly what we are doing with SageMaker every time. Sometimes it is possible for very light models, but when we are doing deep learning models and things like that, we need a lot of libraries, layers, and so on, and we have some limitation with Lambdas. So we don't use Lambda, and we are just waiting for something else. Maybe sometimes we are trying to use ECS, and so we will be able to use SageMaker. After all, this is the main service for machine learning. So if we can keep everything in SageMaker, it's very interesting for us.
Absolutely. No, it's all these solutions now that we've been putting in place that we can now go, actually, I don't necessarily need that. And as long as that wasn't a solution you built last week, then maybe it's not so bad. But that's what reInvent does to you.
Yeah, every time.
Jonas, I'll come to you in a second. Maybe what I've realized, I haven't given Gillian the opportunity to sort of introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and why you're going to give us all the secrets. Oops. Oh, hang on. I'm unmuting you because I thought I'd muted you. Right. It's me. And now you unmute. Oh. Make sure you're unmuted.
There we go.
I'm not touching it anymore.
I know you are secretly, Mike. I know you are. Yeah, so apologies for being late in the madness of reInvent. So I'm Gillian. I come from a development background, but got into machine learning from the kind of applied AI space in AWS. A few years ago, was a machine learning hero up until about a month ago, whenever I joined AWS. So now I'm a specialized solutions architect in AWS. And I'm obviously not going to tell you all the secrets.
No,
maybe,
of course not.
Maybe.
But we'll come back to you in just a moment, and we'll ask you what your sort of pick is from the keynote. So far, we've been talking about the DMS fleet manager, and now we're talking about serverless inference. I don't think we had one in between that. So those two are kind of gone. Jonas, you wanted to add something in there?
Yes, just really for a second, turning back to the serverless inference service, because it's all very exciting. I would really like maybe if we have time, we will dedicate some time to explore what is the real pro and contrast for using the new serverless inference service, the Elastic Container Services. And actually, Lambda, last reInvent, a year ago, they announced the Elastic File System integration with Lambda and bring your own container with Lambda. And it kind of made it easier to bring even big models to a Lambda service. So I think these three players could be put in an arena and make a kind of comparison between them. It could be a nice project, I think.
Straight back to Virginie, because there was fist pumping or fighting. I don't know what was going on.
Oh, it's the fighting between every three possibilities to try to find the best one. So yeah, I would like to see your benchmark from these three solutions if you are trying to do one. It may be very interesting to compare them.
Try to see.
And I think part of the benefit to SageMaker Serverless is that it's part of SageMaker, right? I mean, it's part of that existing ecosystem. So potentially, I wholeheartedly, Virginie, what you were saying before about the endpoints that don't get used very often. I mean, for me in my own personal stuff, that's absolutely me. And I see a lot of this serverless stuff as being an on-ramp to going bigger. And if you are going to be running something at scale, then at some point serverless isn't going to make any sense for you. And that works across the board with serverless, right? It's not just with this. If you start hitting massive scale on your web endpoint, then at some point containers are going to make more sense for you, that kind of stuff. So I really like this from a sort of an onboarding point of view, making it easier to get in, lowering the barriers to entry of building this stuff up. Luca.
Yeah,
I know, I'm not sure about raising hands, but maybe it's appropriate. I don't know.
Yeah, I was hesitant.
Do you need to go to the bathroom? Is that?
No, not yet. Not yet, at least. I also would to add that this serverless stuff is great also for small scale and companies or people starting with services. I'm thinking about serverless Redshift, who wasn't affordable for a small startup because it has a huge impact. And right now you can bring your data and push your data to Redshift and start using a Redshift because it is serverless. And this is great to get started and to remove the friction of getting started.
I agree totally. Gillian, have you got your pick?
Have you talked about Chatbot Designer yet?
We have not. And this is one of the things I really like about these sessions is the list of the crowd never necessarily matches my own list. So go talk about Chatbot.
Well, we might as well, since I come from a background with building some chatbots. So I think it's a really interesting addition to kind of the Lex sort of lineup and the things they've been bringing out. I do wonder which use cases it's going to work really well with and which ones it's still going to take a bit of time to get really good at. I think there's still going to be some manual work, but anything that kind of helps people get started and sort of like mine those intents from your transcripts. If you have, heaps and heaps and heaps of data already, why not have something that's going to help you pull out all the different intents and the answers that are being given and get that really rapid start on building a chatbot for your call center, for your employees, whatever you've got. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see how people use it and how people find it. So I think it's an exciting addition.
No, I haven't dug into this in a lot of depth, but my takeaway was if you've got transcripts of existing conversations, you can essentially you can put that into this new tool and it will magically create you a chatbot. And I'm sure it's going to take a little bit more effort than that. But is that the crux of it? You bring a pre-existing transcript to the service.
Yeah, exactly that. You bring your transcripts. It will process through it, do intent mining, so it'll find all the intents, and then intent construction. So it'll bring back all those different phrases, and it'll kind of help you separate them out, and it'll identify what the piece of information you'd be trying to get for each intent. So if someone says, do I want to quote? Well, what values do I need to get from them? I need to get it's a home insurance or car insurance. So that is how it's intended to work. And I think it's going to work really well in some use cases, but definitely think it's going to be a good start for a lot of people to kind of pull out those initial things, because it is a lot of work working out, okay, if people have scripts for their call centers, you know the kind of things that people are calling in, and you may know, well, these are the 10 intents I want, but you don't know how people phrase those things. And that's the big part of the chatbot, is how do you build up all the different ways that someone asks for that one thing. Rather than you manually going through all the transcripts and doing that, if something can help you get accelerated on that, I think that's a big win.
Absolutely. Has anyone else got sort of experience with chatbots? I mean, I've played around with setting them up, but nothing much more seriously than that. And maybe this is why. Maybe it's too hard to set up. Yeah. So I'm anticipating that we're going to put this transcript in. It's going to, as you say, then essentially just pre-populate the interface and say, okay, now you're well accelerated into this process of setting it up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I guess while we're talking about this one, the other one was Kendra, that got sort of that point and click kind of capability. Was that talked about? That was the very next one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Is Kendra in anyone's life here on this call?
So, we are too small company for it.
Yeah, it is too expensive.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say that, but
sure. Well, I guess so. We talk about what those features are from Kendra, seeing as you've mentioned it. I mentioned it. So Kendra, which is the enterprise search, as you say, for large enterprise with lots of documents and all the rest of it. Previously to this, you needed to jump into the SDK and integrate it with whatever applications you've got internally. Now you can build a user interface with this drag and drop capability that Swami was talking about. So you can basically put a front end on it and don't need to do that integration. So echoes things that we've seen elsewhere, I suppose, in some of the other announcements.
A big theme this year with the non-technical user being able to go in and set things up, definitely.
Absolutely. And look, maybe, I mean, how are we doing with keynote announcements that are really sort of machine learning centric? Because I think that's probably a lot about what people are interested in talking about in this session. There were, I mean, let me just like rattle off the first few, and then what I want to do, I think, is talk about Canvas, because I know that was from yesterday. I know Maisie, you're interested and excited about that too. So we had just to recap what the announcements were, just in case you didn't know. So DevOps Guru for RDS. So some machine learning smarts in the back end of that, I guess, but essentially it's all about automatically detecting what problems you've got going on in RDS. I could put these up on screen while I'm talking about them. It's got something to look at. RDS Custom, which I didn't even know was a thing, but apparently that was a thing, and now it's also a thing with SQL Server, so you can install Power BI on RDS. Any round of applause for that? I don't know. I mean, is that a thing? What's wrong with QuickSight? I don't know. Where else are we going? DynamoDB standard infrequent access. I guess this is potentially something that we're probably more likely to use. Anyone excited at any level for that? Or we really just want to focus on the machine learning stuff?
Exciting. I don't know it is exactly the right word, but it's something that may be interesting.
Yeah, gives you another. Well, so it doesn't really change architecturally, does it? But it just maybe gives you an opportunity to do something slightly different. Store more data.
I remember. I think from the keynote, it was like this. It's like he gave the example of the social media data that isn't frequently accessed, but we still want to keep it around, which I thought was like an interesting use case. But I know for me directly, it doesn't impact my work.
Sure. No, absolutely. Yes. I sometimes feel bad, actually, when I'm like on LinkedIn, I'm scrolling back on LinkedIn to last year's reInvent and like, I'm really sorry about these database calls. I know you're not interested in doing this right now.
Right.
And hey, maybe LinkedIn uses DynamoDB. I have no idea. But yes, absolutely. No, that was a good use case for that. Sorry, did I interrupt someone? or you're frantically agreeing with what I'm saying. So database migration service we've talked about. Okay, quickly, before we get to Canvas, SageMaker Ground Truth Plus. I looked at the description for this, and I didn't notice any difference between SageMaker Ground Truth and Ground Truth Plus. Has anyone had a chance to look at that?
The difference is the plus in the name.
Yeah.
No, there is a difference. Yeah, so SageMaker Ground Truth was something that I was using quite a lot in my previous job. So just it's not that many weeks ago, I've been using it quite a lot, and it's really powerful, but there is still some challenges in companies using it. I think a lot of companies struggle because they don't have the right people to label. If you want custom workflows, that can be quite a lot of work. You'll need developers to do that. What SageMaker Ground Truth Plus adds is a bit more of a turnkey service. So you don't have to go and set everything up yourself. You fill in a form and say, this is the type of job I need, and someone on their side will help you then get the right workforce. And doing things like, if you're using an external workforce, putting together really good labeling instructions is very difficult. I was using an internal workforce who was labeling data that they do manually all the time. So they knew it really, really well, but even they struggled, and there was a lot of data errors we had to go back and do. They'd never used the tool before. So getting really good instructions, getting the right people to do your labeling, and getting enough people to do enough data, because the volume of data people need, preaching to the choir here, there isn't a lot of labeled data out there for what you need. And sometimes you can't synthesize it because real world is so odd. A lot of the use cases I was looking at recently, the type of data, once I started looking at real data and what real people were doing, I was like, I never would have synthesized this. Is not, I never would have imagined that this is what people were doing. So I think there's big challenges, and what they're trying to do, again, is to lift the sort of away from having to have technical people who can help you get this set up and get you sorted, and give you more of a service where they will help you more match up with the right things and get the really high quality labeled data that you need.
So am I picking up that there's, I mean, it is an automated service, right? There's no like sort of finding you a team which is the right thing. I mean, it matches with the questions you've answered in the interface, right? We imagine.
I believe it is not fully automated.
Okay.
There's partial automation, but there is also a little bit of white glove service where someone on the AWS side is going to.
Right. Yeah. Which is appropriate, right? Because I mean, SageMaker Ground Truth is all about people and people doing things. Yeah. So like that's fine. So it's extending out not just the labeling, but potentially the orchestration or the management and finding the right team.
Yeah.
Could also be part of that. That's very interesting.
So you have a human element in your human labeling that's going to help you out, because people do find it challenging at the minute doing it all themselves.
I expect to see it as something in between Mechanical Turk and the traditional SageMaker answer. In Mechanical Turk, you really have a huge pool of anonymous workers which can do the work good or can do the work as the best effort, but as long as you describe well the job and well the task and they can execute it, it's okay. But then anyway, you have to make some labeling from the same data from different persons. Otherwise, you cannot verify if it's done well. On the other side, you have the SageMaker, traditional SageMaker, when you might struggle to find internal persons, enough internal resources to label the job. What I saw, some third-party competitors, that they really offer a service, what I like the description as soon as I understood, as far as I understood from SageMaker Plus, it might be something similar. that they can assign you some specialized people. Maybe, for example, someone had to make a segmentation data set for blood cells. That you have to know how a blood cell is looking like, what you're looking for in a microscopic image. It's not such a simple thing like draw a bounding box around a cat or a dog. And if it is so, then I think it will be very valid for some use cases, such kind of service to match.
Yeah. I mean, the benefit.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, the benefit of the SageMaker Ground Truth Plus is that you don't have to set up any of the pipelines and things like that. Whereas if you just use it yourself, you have to set up the jobs and put in all the data and handle all of that. Whereas with this, you're just describing what you want, and someone else is going to help you set up the right things.
That's really, so it's really disconnecting. So you as a data scientist or as a machine learning engineer who you know what you want, but maybe talking to people isn't your thing, then you're basically outsourcing that to the service to go find people and talk to people, know how to communicate with those people to get the outcome I want. I think
even considering things like to set up a SageMaker Ground Truth job, you have to understand something about IAM rules. Or, if you want to encrypt your data, well, now I have to create a key, so I've got customer, So it's okay if you're a developer or you're a technical person going into the console and using it. But if you're a data scientist, you have no idea about any of that. You've got a slight bit of friction when you're trying to set up the jobs because there is some pieces that you might not know about. And if you want some custom handling, you can do that in a Lambda. But if you have never written a Lambda before, so I think it's to take away some of that complexity from data scientists, from other business people who want that labeled data, so they don't have to understand some of the more technical concepts in SageMaker Ground Truth.
And this is why I really love these sessions, because it's just, and this is what reInvent's all about for me as well. It's like meeting people and talking to people about the announcements afterwards, because I've just got so much more insight from what initially I was thinking, that sounds no different. But yeah, absolutely, that sounds really good. And if nothing else, as long as I don't have to label any data, then I'm happy, because I do not like labeling data. Nobody does. So.
I think it's a good thing for developers to spend a little bit of time labeling data so they can appreciate the complexity.
Maisie, were you putting your hand up saying I like labeling data, or I also? Oh, sorry.
No,
I'm happy to send it all your way.
Just agreeing with you. Yeah, definitely had my share of doing the grunt work, labeling the data, spending the hours, just punching it in. Yeah, just to get something trainable.
Yeah. All right. So let's, Maisie, while we're talking to you as well, you were keen on talking about Canvas. And I think that sort of like leads into a couple of other things in there as well. I think in SageMaker notebooks and Studio in general. What's your take on Canvas? What's particularly got your interest on that?
I haven't looked at it yet.
Oh, look at that! What happened? Jillian, you have to wave at her from the other side of the room if you've spotted where she is. It's going. I think. Yes, just dropped out. If Maisie comes back, then we'll bring her back in. Has anybody else had a chance to look at Canvas? This is obviously from the keynote yesterday, but I think it's still very relevant for us.
I've just read the documentation. I haven't tested it right now, but I want to test it this weekend. To know a bit more about it. I think it can be interesting to test hypotheses before going to something in production. And for people who don't know how to do machine learning, it will be easier for them to just put the data, click on some buttons and, oh, it's working. I've got a model and I know what is important for my model or not. For production thing, I think there will be the need for data scientists to look at the model and to know if everything is right, because it's not because the accuracy is very high that the model will be good in production. So to test something, to test hypotheses, to discover if there is a link between inputs and outputs, it's very, very interesting and very quick to use it. But for production, we still need something like SageMaker and with codes and more control about it. But it's a good thing to start. And it is like Gillian has said, it's very useful for people who don't know machine learning and want to discover it, like a lot of things this year. You don't know something, but you want to try it. So, poof, this is a service for you.
Totally. Maisie, we've got you back.
Sorry, yeah. I just dropped the beauty of being remote.
Well,
yeah.
and I will also appreciate the fact that you're holding up your phone the entire time. So yes, feel free to swap arms.
Yeah. I know, right? Switch angles. But yeah, I think one of the things I just wanted to hop off of that was, I was talking to a data scientist here about like the need for baselining and how creating a baseline would be, and maybe that's where Canvas can come in, where
Oh, we will not know the end of the sentence.
The Wi-Fi is appalling. It's appalling. That's why I'm here on hardline.
I think Maisie's looking to come back in. We'll encourage Maisie to maybe to go and sit right next to Gillian or something. I think you're in the same room, so
yeah,
I think you got issues with Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I'll go do
really
that.
Sorry. Yes.
Hope that helps. I'll come over.
Absolutely. As whatever you can manage. So I've had a little look at Canvas, and what I can tell you from what I've seen, and I don't know how much this is in documentation already, it is SageMaker Studio. Like it's exactly the same URL as SageMaker Studio when you spin it up. It just has a different parameters on the end. If you work around with Canvas and play around with data sets and making models in Canvas, you see them inside of Studio, and it also has the ability to sort of export the model. It basically allows you to create a URL which you can then open in Canvas. So if you want to share it with someone else, you can. And when you do that, when you open it up, in Studio, it is AutoML. So you can see the AutoML job that's happened. I actually, the first time I used it, I actually basically spun up the same project, one in Canvas, one in AutoML, just to see the difference. And they took exactly the same amount of time to do the same thing. And that's fine, right? I have no problems with that. I think that's really good. I think exposing out the capabilities of SageMaker Studio to a completely different audience is, I think it's really interesting. I really like the look of it.
It seems to me that it's a kind of union of Data Wrangler, which was originally designed to explore your structural data sets and AutoML. And when I was looking at the announcement, it came to me a very strange deja vu feeling. Someone here do remember the very first machine learning service announced by AWS in 2015, which was simply called Amazon Machine Learning, and it did a very similar job, like this Canvas is promising to do, much smaller, much simpler, whatever you like. But all in all, it was working with the structural data. It analyzed it and then came up with a AutoML solution. Actually, it's still a live existing service. For my surprise, I didn't look at it for 4 years or something like this, but it's still there is more like for interest or for legacy reasons, I guess. And actually, it resolves, I guess, for fast prototyping, it might be a valid service, because I read the blog post of Alex Casalboni, who just published on machine learning blog, AWS machine learning blog about Canvas. And there you can see some very interesting aspects, like it does the work for you, what you typically call exploitative data analysis. So when you check the cross correlation between different columns and the histogram of the columns, it just immediately gives to you in a certain point, and you can have a quick understanding if data is skewed or not. Then later on, still on the blog post of Alex, you can see that he quickly identifies a certain input column which correlates too well with the output one, and in fact the conclusion is that it is a information leak for the output. So you cannot use this column for prediction. You have to exclude it from the inputs one. And so for such kind of insights, quick prototyping, I think it might be a very valid service. And eventually, if it comes up with a model that is good enough, you can put it immediately in production as well.
Mm. Yes, and it's got that workflow to do that. How's Maisie doing? Can you hear us, Maisie? Look at that.
I don't believe she can hear you.
Okay.
We're also being told that we're being kicked off here at 3:30.
Oh, nice.
Jeremy Daly's kicking us out.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
I know, right?
Yes. Well, okay. We've talked a bit about Canvas. We've talked a bit about, I think, probably a lot of the services. Anything that we haven't talked about particularly that we need to sort of just cover off before we wrap it up? Anybody have anything that we have not mentioned? There is some stuff at the end there. The stuff from the very end of the keynote, just talking about diversity and trying to train as many people as possible in machine learning and just increase the diversity of the workforce, I thought was absolutely something which we shouldn't ignore. But yeah, anybody got any other kind of points from the keynote?
I'm a bit excited also about the SageMaker Studio Lab, which was
of course,
which was announced.
So I'm going to get in trouble for forgetting that one. So and just for note, product manager for that will be doing a live stream with me tomorrow, and so I'm going to get in so much trouble for forgetting that one. No, okay, sorry. Go ahead.
You, No, I have to do quite a lot of time of my work coaching junior colleagues or even following university students, like they are doing internship with us. And okay, Mike told that we can mention the direct competitor for this service, which is obviously Google Colab, which was the first choice of Go for a fast trying out some model, even with GPU, or you just find some GitHub repository which is interesting. Very often they provide you a direct button where just clicking on it, you can have a live environment, even with GPU. It is super fast and super easily integrated. Now, if the Studio Lab can do a same job, and as a bonus, it was mentioned, I have to check it out, but it was mentioned that migrate project to SageMaker Studio for production in just one step. It is super interesting because it's the same let's say logic which we saw in Canvas, that from a fast prototyping, eventually you can evolve your project into something in production ready direction. So I think it's super interesting, and it's free.
Yes,
and even GPU is free.
Yeah, so that's right. It's free. You've got two different instance types where you can have like normal CPU or GPU attached, and you can save what you're doing, so you can come back and look at it the next day. All you need is an email address to sign up to it, and you're in. No, I'm excited for this. It's a basic environment to run in, but it's a notebook environment. You can go ahead and install your libraries and install what you need, and off you go. I think the one thing that you'll immediately hit when you get in there, from our point of view, like we are more experienced in machine learning, is, oh, how can I integrate this with the rest of SageMaker? And that's where the problems may start to lie, because it's not inside your AWS account. You don't have a role on there. I don't want to see people putting access keys in there. But apart from that, like if you've got to that point where you're wanting to do that, then you should be coming in and using a SageMaker notebook anyway. So yeah, it's just about lowering that barrier to entry to get people into using machine learning, I think.
Yeah, I'm giving a lot of training for companies or for students because I'm still a teacher, a part-time teacher. And very often we just need a notebook to test or to learn something. And so right now, at the beginning, I was trying to use SageMaker notebooks for that, with pre-signed URL and I gave the URL each time to every student. It was very complicated, very difficult to put that. And then I switched to Collab because it was easy. You just have to click and you have a notebook. And right now I will be able to keep it with SageMaker and with AWS, because we will have the same thing in SageMaker with this lab. And it's integrated with GitLab, Git. So you can save your project on the space that you have on the lab. You have 15 gigabytes, but you can also save it to Git and use it in other places thanks to the Git. And you can just pull the Git and do a checkout where you want. So it's very interesting to switch from one tool to another very easily, and to have a notebook right now when you want. So I've signed in for a test, but I've not received the email for the moment.
Sure, I'll have to do that too. Yes, and obviously using Git there to collaborate with classmates or whatever it is that you're doing and working on projects. I think that's right. How are we doing at Caesar's whatever it's forum?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? Or
I can. Yes, I added you in, so there's like a little. Anybody watching right now, Maisie is on the next box over, but the sound is coming from
right here. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you. Unfortunately, I have to go.
Luca, you did explain that beforehand as well, so I very much appreciate you being here. Any last words? Do you want to sort of wrap it up? Because obviously you're in your process now of kind of leaving reInvent. You're off to get ready to leave.
Yeah, I'm following the next 2 days, and now I'm going to have a COVID test in order to be able to fly back to Europe. And so this is the reason why I have to rush right now. I am excited because while we are speaking, Peter DeSantis is having his keynote, and probably, hopefully, with a lot more announcements that could also fall in the machine learning space. So we'll have a lot.
Who knows? Everybody seems to be taking everybody else's announcements at this reInvent, so who knows? No, very good. Oh, well, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
I'll let you go. And as you've mentioned there as well, obviously with Peter doing his keynote, then obviously many of us might want to go and see that too. So maybe we'll just sort of go around for final comments, unless we've missed out anything in particular. So Virginie, have you got any wrap-up thoughts?
I think it's very interesting, these new services and things that are coming up. There are no big news like over years. When there was, for example, the beginning of SageMaker, that was a big something, a big new service and so on. But right now, I think they are more mature and just changing and adding little things to services we have. And it's interesting, this change between big announcements and just little steps to go forward and to help everyone to go to machine learning or to the cloud in general. So, yeah.
I think it was even informally declared in 2019 reInvent that they try to, let's say, spread a bit the announcement around reInvent and don't concentrate everything on the keynotes like they did the years before until up to 2018. And we really see, okay, last year it was particularly special, of course, because of the online reInvent, but we see, I think, the same dynamics now, that it somehow unwraps a bit slower the announcement, and it's more spread over the time. It's okay. You have to keep attention more longer time. Maybe it's a bit more difficult to catch up everything, but it's okay. You have more time to digest on the same time. Announcement.
Yeah, I think that's right, and it's been like that across the board. Look for other announcements that are happening in the blog and in the news, because they're often not in the keynotes. So both of you, in Maisie and Gillian, any final words to I've got this conscious feeling that there's someone at the side who's trying to push you off the stage at the same time, and you've had all these technical issues, and I do appreciate you sticking around with us. Any final thoughts?
I think. Oh, sorry. Let me turn out the. Yeah, I think I'm just really excited about being here. Okay. Right. Yeah, we're totally getting kicked. But I think we're just super excited about, I know I'm here super excited hearing about the use cases, like kind of what you're saying, Virginia, about like there are a lot more use cases of SageMaker and production. And so I think it's really fun being, I hope you guys have that same experience too.
Yeah. No, thank you for having us on, Mike. Sorry, we're having to get.
No, well, thank you for pushing through.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think generally the machine learning announcements they have been spread out over the year. There's as many big bang ones this time, but it is good to see things being opened up to more and more people, and hopefully more accessible to more people. So I think that's positive.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Well, on that, we'll say goodbye. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks for everybody for watching. Yes, please tune in at other points throughout the week where we've got other live streams and we'll be doing more stuff. Thank you to everybody here, and I look forward to catching up with you all again really soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for the opportunity.
Bye. Thank you. Bonne nuit.
Bonne nuit.
Ciao, ciao.